So, wifey darling, what are we chatting about today?
Today we are chatting about Lola's recent struggles and our struggles with her feeding and her health stuff. Oh, it's all going on.
So, welcome back to the Crippen household where we're all tired and exhausted. Here to chat again about parenting, about what's going on in our lives with our two children, our baby who's 3 months old, Lola, and our eldest, Lily, who's three and a half, approaching 4. And you're here with us, the hosts, as always. I'm Elliot.
And I'm Emma.
There we go. We normally say something about ourselves, which I've not planned. Interesting fact. What's an interesting fact about you, Emma?
I'm currently the person that Lola will drink with.
I did successfully get her to feed half a bottle with me this morning.
You did. You actually was very successful.
Yeah. We'll get all into that in a minute. We did a whole episode on feeding, but it does tie a lot into this episode because we've had lots of going on since we last recorded and we're with you. So this is kind of an update episode of all the stuff that's been going on in our lives. And
if you can hear, we've got our little friend with
There's
us.
Lola in the background. Hi, Lola. Say hello to everyone. All our 17 listeners out there tuning in to hear what's going on. Hopefully you enjoy hearing all about our challenges and whatnot. I mean, oh.
Do you want to sit with Mummy? Okay, come on then. I think she's going to be a vocal podcast host today.
We have 3 podcast hosts today. Baby's come to join us. So much for don't wake the baby. The baby's awake before we even started. What else do we normally say anything else in the intro? We haven't done this in so long.
I don't know.
We don't know what's going on. It's going to be a bit probably
all over the place.
Yeah, I mean it's the usual thing you get with our podcast.
I was going to say,
very
I
unprofessional.
don't know if we've ever been consistent.
It's what you tune in for. It's a bit of light-hearted chit-chat. Oh yes, I've not done my thing. I normally give us a little location. Welcome back to the blanket fort. I normally make up a little location every time.
Where should we be today?
Sat cozy in bed, trying to hide from the world, under the covers.
Like when they go on the bear hunt.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Beep boop boop. Parenting achievement time.
Parenting achievement time.
Feel like I'm very low energy today.
I'm very high energy for
Oh, you still got lots of adrenaline in you. So this is a little segment before we get to the main part of the show where we like to share something that's gone wrong, a parenting fail, or just a relatable moment, a funny story. We're not experts or perfect parents. Things go wrong for us too. And we like to share in the misery together.
We do. A little while back, we were going to church, and it was one of our first weeks going with Lola, in addition to our other little girl, Lily. And I remember I got out of the car with Lily, started walking in. Elliot walked in, turned around, I was like, hey, mate, where's the baby?
Yeah, I left the baby in the car. I know. It was only across a car park.
It wasn't far, but it did make me laugh. Then I turned around and I was like, wait a minute.
It's because I didn't really see you get out and go with Lily, and I was like rushing around grabbing the bags, and so I assumed you had the baby, and you assumed I had the baby, and we just left the baby in the car, just left her there abandoned, forgot about her.
Yeah. So I saw him, I was like, well, this is a surprise.
I was like, oh no.
I didn't expect to without the baby.
Go and get the baby, we forgot her. I was like, oh dear. Yeah, that's true. Yep, that was an early parenting fail.
Yeah.
That would,
So when you listen in the future, Lola, we did once forget you when we were going to show.
Yeah. The other one I was going to bring up was, again, a little while back. It's probably not actually that long ago, but I mean, time is so strange at the moment. We're deep in the trenches of early days parenting that a day feels like a week and a week feels like a month. Do you remember when you were pumping milk and you gave me the bottle to take down and put it in the fridge? And I came back up to you still holding it. I was like, Emma, there's a ladybug in your milk.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't
know how it got there.
I don't know how it's got there. But I looked down and there was like just this little ladybug swimming around.
And it annoyed me so much because it was in the earlier days where I was still like building my milk supply. And I was like, for goodness sake, that's a whole thing of milk gone now because a ladybug decided that it would be tasty to try and drown itself in my milk. I don't even know how it got in the house.
Yeah, how it had crawled in. It must have been like when you were pumping, it must have somehow crawled in.
Oh, or was it the one pause between like taking it off and giving it to you?
Yeah. It immediately was like, sweet milk. I'm going to go and dive in there and drown myself.
Yeah, it was just waiting for its moment.
These relatable, we'd love to hear from you. If
have you ever found a ladybird in your milk?
Yeah, or have you ever
abandoned
your baby? Get in touch and let us know. Or if you have any other parenting fails or stories that are funny, get in touch and we'll share them on future episodes. We like to hear what's going on with you and have this as a two-way conversation. You can do that on, all the places. You can work it out. There's links down below, social media, website, blah, 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 stuff like that. Plate up that meal that your toddler's probably not going to eat anyway, and you're going to throw it in the bin. And let's jump into our conversation today. Well, we should probably start from the beginning of the year. So our last podcast episode was back at Christmas, and it's, as of the time of recording, we're just into February. And so most of this is taken place during January of 2025.
Yep. In the last month.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember where we kind of left off with things before. If you've been listening along with our story previously, we talked about the fact that Lola had started teething.
Yep.
And I think we'd said she's like kind of fussy feeding. But what really developed from then was like really bad sickness.
Yeah.
So like reflux, and she would throw up after every feed. And that went on for quite a while and was quite dramatic. So we can talk a bit about that because it took us a while really to realise something was wrong. I think because we didn't have this with Lily.
We were like, oh, she's just a very sicky baby.
Yeah, I mean all babies are kind of sick, aren't they? But it was more than that. Like it's hard to explain.
It was a lot of sick.
After every feed, she would be throwing up what felt like most of the bottle, or was she? I'm trying to remember now. It's like because we've been through so much. Was she as sick? Like because you were breastfeeding at the time as well, when we were mixed feeding.
We were. She threw it less from the breast, but she still threw up. Like it was still 50-50.
Yeah. Was there a point at which we kind of worked out that this was not normal?
I think I just got us some anti-reflux formula,
which I didn't know existed.
No, I remember. I think. Basically, I'm on loads of forums on Facebook.
Yeah.
And someone would be saying that, like, they used that and it did the trick to stop kind of a lot of throw up. And she did do better with that. Didn't throw up quite as much.
Seemed to keep it down a bit better.
Yeah.
I mean, she still threw up a lot.
Yeah.
And, like, I remember us always discussing how if she throws up this much when she's on anti-reflux formula, how much would she be throwing up if we were just on normal?
Yeah.
So it's kind of just a bit thicker, isn't it?
It is.
It's heavier to try and
settle. It's harder to throw up,
in
really.
her stomach. Again, I don't think we just assumed she was quite sicky, and I don't think we realised there was something else going on.
Yeah, we didn't consider underlying problems. And then was it about like 2 weeks after that? Then she got very fussy with her feeds. She didn't want to drink, really.
She didn't want to breastfeed.
No, I didn't want to breastfeed
So
at all.
from that point, from about mid-January, she's completely gone off breastfeeding.
Yeah. You don't breastfeed, do you? You just want to lick it.
And your milk supply is doing fantastically. Coming in great.
Which I say is annoying, but it means I can actually supply half of her feeds, which is pretty good.
Can still like express, and we can bottle it.
Yeah.
So in the middle of this, I think this is the order of what happened. I'm sorry, it's like we should have really noted down what happened in order. Like my brain is all over the place trying to remember what happened when.
Yeah.
I think completely unrelated to the actual stuff that's going on with her reflux. She threw up that like yellow sick.
Oh, she did, yeah.
Which panicked us a bit, and we went into A&E.
Yep.
Typically, we always end up somehow in hospital at a weekend.
We do. It's never midweek where you could try. I know it's a fight, but you could try and get hold of a doctor.
Yeah.
It's always on a weekend when you have no choice but to go to hospital.
Yeah.
So we went to hospital.
I mean, we've been to hospital quite a lot, haven't we?
About
now
3 times with her now.
Yeah, with Lola. But then I was
Yeah.
thinking, like, early on, we had that visit. We went with Lily when she got a finger in a door.
Yeah.
And then we've also been with you because your
C-section got
was
infected.
infected.
Yeah.
So at least like 5 or 6 times we've
It's
been
true.
in to
We're
like...
becoming hospital regulars, worryingly.
Yeah.
Got to see a doctor.
Didn't seem to be a problem.
Didn't seem too worried.
Yeah.
Just
Again, I wouldn't have had a clue that this was a thing. It was you who said, "Oh, it's a bright yellow sick. That's a dangerous thing. You have to go see a doctor."
Because it can mean like there's something blocking a stomach in the stomach, and
Right.
it's not good. But we saw the doctor, and they thought she was fine. They thought she'd just thrown up on an empty stomach, and that's why it was kind of yellow in her
Yeah,
stomach.
it had been a
while in
long
it.
time, hadn't it, since she drunk? And this was the other thing that's happening along with all the sickness is the constant challenge to get her to feed. We thought she was just fussy, and we chatted about in our feeding episode a little bit how she wasn't doing as big a gaps as we'd like, and like her total over 24 hours wasn't quite as high as they say on like the things. But we know that you kind of have to take that with a pinch of salt.
Yeah,
every
baby's
kind
different.
of different, and it became even more challenging though because her total started dropping further,
and she was refusing
and she
a lot
was
of
like
drinks.
refusing to have very much at all each feed, and she'd go like really long gaps between feeds sometimes.
Yeah.
So
when they said it shouldn't go more than 4 hours, I was like, well, it's definitely been longer than 4 hours.
So that's when we began to really like
get worried. So then we went to I think the first time I got a call from the doctor, and they put us on Gaviscon.
Oh yes, yeah, that was it. I forget how many steps we've been through. Yeah, Gaviscon,
which frankly didn't do a lot.
No, not a lot.
And from talking to other people who've been through the same kind of journey, it doesn't do a lot.
Yeah.
It's just the first pot of call.
And I must say, once again, up front, I mean, we kind of give this caveat every time this medical stuff comes up. We haven't had a great experience with the NHS. It's not. I don't know whether it's just us, our location, or
But it's annoying because I feel like during my pregnancy this time I had a much better experience with the NHS, and I actually was thinking a lot better of them. And then this time again, it's not gone great.
So there are times when we did kind of go rogue and try and sort stuff out ourselves, and because we just weren't getting anywhere with the NHS. It's just frustrating. So alongside that, at that point, you went out your way and got us those drops.
Yes.
So we had discovered that maybe we were thinking maybe she had like a lactose intolerance.
Yes. So we got these drops that kind of like it reduces the lactose in the milk if you put these little
And you
drops
bought
in
some lacto-free formula.
Yep.
So we tried that. Basically, we it was like trial and error.
Yeah.
Going
see if
through
she
all these
feels,
things.
looks a
And
bit better with it.
bizarrely, that seems like a silly way to do things. Like, why don't we just get her tested and like? But this is exactly the same method that the NHS was doing with us.
Yeah, it is.
Just, they were like, well, try Gaviscon first, and if that doesn't work, we'll prescribe something else, and then we'll try that, and then eventually down the line, we'll see if she has a cow milk allergy thing. And we were like, okay. So at that point, we were like, well, why don't we just jump ahead?
Yeah. At this point, we didn't quite understand that lactose and cow's milk allergy were different allergies.
There's various points during the story where, looking back, I feel quite naive about ourselves. But again, we'd not been through this, had we? So we had no clue. Like, in our heads, we hadn't quite twigged that like a cow milk allergy and a lactose allergy would be like completely different things. The drops seemed to help though at the time.
They did, yeah. I still think the drops helped, but maybe that was still just making it easier for her to digest.
First mistake of many, the NHS failed to tell us that we weren't supposed to put the Gaviscon in the anti-reflux formula.
Yeah, true. And they even knew we were an anti-reflux formula because the woman on the phone said, oh, keep up with the anti-reflux formula if it's helping.
Yeah.
And didn't go, oh, you shouldn't put Gaviscon in it. Although we've kind of found out that ourselves because I read the label on the back of the Gaviscon. Yes, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating looking back because we were in contact with like the doctors. At that point, I think you rang up our community midwife.
No, the health visitors.
Oh, sorry, health visitors.
And they basically were like, oh, there's nothing we can do.
Yeah. And it's just like,
and I
we're
was
kind
like,
of making them aware that we've got an issue. But it kind of took until way further down the line before anyone would actually help us and do anything.
Yeah. Because the health it was like, oh, have you tried feeding in a different way? And I was like, yes, we've tried. Basically, I was like, we've tried all the practical things. And they were like, oh, well, then it must be a medical thing, in which case we can't do anything.
And it's worth saying, like, the reason a lot of the time they weren't taking us seriously is because Lola's a very big baby.
Yeah.
She's got a lot of weight on her. She wasn't losing weight.
No.
And so even though we were saying, like, she's not feeding, it's taking us over an hour to get her to drink a bottle. Over 24 hours, she's drinking less and less every day. It's
Yeah.
about half as much as she should be drinking. Because she still had wet nappies and still was... Well, I say she was gaining weight. No one weighed her.
No, so nobody knows. So at our 6-week appointment, she wasn't weighed.
Yeah.
Which it turned out later that that doctor had made up a weight and put it in the system, which was a weight that would have been dangerously low for her to have been, considering what weight she was born at.
Oh, dear. You can't make it up, can you?
Yeah. So that was clearly like just...
And this
bad
one was a
practice.
phone conversation, so you didn't even get to see a doctor, so they couldn't even look at Lola and make any sort of judgments about how well she was doing. The Gaviscon wasn't really making much impact, so we went back
to the GP. Got an appointment, thankfully. And we saw this lady doctor, and she was actually really nice. In hindsight, I don't think she knew that much, actually, but she was very friendly and...
This is the difficulty, isn't it? I mean, GPs, they're not specialists,
well, it's because they're general, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's frustrating, though, then, that they're giving you... They're the ones doing prescriptions and they're the ones telling you what to do next, but they know very little about babies.
Yeah. So she saw that Lola was like clearly didn't want to drink anything, was in a bad way. And she was like, oh, it's either reflux or cow's milk protein allergy.
Yes.
And at this point, we don't know which it is.
So I think this was the first time we'd heard or considered cow's milk protein allergy.
True.
We had no idea what that was. So basically, she just can't. She's intolerant to cow's milk, which is in most formulas.
Yeah.
And obviously in your breast milk as well.
Once again, though, they knew like we were expressing milk, but she didn't like tell me to not eat or drink milk.
Did she not?
No, because at that point she was like, well, like...
Oh, because they wanted to treat the reflux first,
yes, but she
they?
said at the time, she said, have this
Oh, we can never pronounce it right. We call it omnipresol, but that's not how you say it.
Omeprazole.
Omeprazole, yeah.
Oh, she said, try omeprazole for like the next 4 days. And then if nothing improves, we'll put you on a cow's milk protein allergy formula.
Yeah, a special formula that's like just... And it's got no allergens in at all. I mean, I'm not quite sure what it's got in it.
It smells horrible.
It does smell horrible, yeah. There's so many possibilities of what we thought could be happening. It's very difficult, you know, and they didn't really want to diagnose anything, just kind of treat possible symptoms. So we were also wondering about whether it was kind of a bottle aversion.
Yeah, bottle aversion.
So we started looking into this as well, because it wasn't that she wouldn't drink, it's just that she'd scream if the bottle was anywhere near her mouth.
Yeah.
I mean, I was still wondering whether it was just teething related, because she's like been teething really badly, and she's quite young to be teething. But I mean, it's quite similar to our eldest. Lily was teething about this age as well. So like, she really doesn't like the bottle being in her mouth because it causes her a lot of pain, and then she tries to drink and she doesn't like that, and she just screams and won't drink anything. So it's trying to navigate which of these factors are having an impact. And at this point, she was drinking so little that we'd begun to like force feed her in a way that like we needed her to consume milk to live. Like kind of feeding is essential.
So like when people do cup feeding, like sometimes you just have to pour it down her throat just to get her to drink some.
Yeah. And we were wondering if that had then caused
her to not like drinking because it's a bad association.
So we had all these things running in parallel, which wasn't particularly helpful. But
no. And then I think it was about a week, because I left it a bit longer than the doctor said. I think it was about 5 days. But at that point, I'd already ordered some cow's milk protein formula because...
Yeah, we took things into our own hands. And
I found out from one of my friends what they prescribe, and I was like, right, I'm just going to order one of them so that we've already started on this beforehand. Because the doctor basically told me, well, in 4 days, we're going to give you that anyway.
We're going to put you on it anyway.
Yeah.
I understand it from their perspective. A week doesn't sound like a long time to like try a a medication before moving on to the next stage. But for us, every day felt like a week because like it's just so
well, it's
difficult.
like a fight every day to get her to feed.
Every
it was
feed,
miserable.
like, and you'd get one feed done, then you'd just be like worrying about the next feed, like will she drink? And you can't really go out anywhere during this time. Like we've barely been anywhere in January because you just can't guarantee she's going to feed.
No.
And it's been really hard on Lily because we've been
has.
spending so much time trying to deal with Lola and her medical things and trying to get her to drink. We often need to like tag team it to try and do it. And like, you're a lot more patient than me. So like you'll often sit there for an hour or two trying to get her to drink, whereas I get frustrated a lot quicker. But it's just been difficult all round. And I don't think some of the medical professionals understood, you know, some of that challenge that...
Or how debilitating it is when you're like, no, I won't be able to do anything today but feed my child.
Yeah.
Which it should come naturally.
Yeah.
Like they should want to drink.
And like often they would say to us like, well, you know, it's natural in the sense like she won't starve herself to death. She will drink. And I was like, no, you don't understand. Like,
she will.
If we weren't forcing her to drink... she's not drinking.
Because we gave her 2 days where we tried not to force it and she was down.
Yeah, she's not losing weight. It's true. She doesn't need to be admitted to hospital. But the reason she's not losing weight is because we're putting in so much effort to get her to feed.
Yeah, I was basically like, it's a credit to us that she's not lost weight because we've had to fight so much just to get
But
her
instead they just look at her and say, oh, she's a big baby. She's not losing weight. There's not a problem. And it's like,
But it was when we saw this lady doctor, she turned out, she was like, oh, well, that can't be the right weight because that would be a dangerous weight that the other doctor had made up.
And you said to her...
And I was like,
I
said she was never weighed by that doctor. Like, it was literally an in-and-out appointment. And she was like, oh, right, okay.
So a week later when we were due to get the cow milk allergy formula...
I had to call them up to be like, oh, nothing's changed.
Yeah.
We need to be prescribed cow's milk protein formula. And doctor on the phone was like, okay, great, but before we prescribe it, you need to come in and just get her weighed to check like she hasn't lost a lot of weight because if this is the wrong treatment method, it's quite dangerous. So yes, I know,
And like it's frustrating, but it's good in a way, you know, we're happy that someone's actually wanting to take a look at her and actually weigh her.
Anyway, this one I got really annoyed. So then I went into the doctor's and it was the doctor who'd seen me before who hadn't weighed her the last time.
Yeah. So not your nice lady doctor,
not my nice
it's the
lady
other one.
Doctor. I'm calling, well, I'm not going to say what we call him. My family have got a new name for him.
Can't be said on our family-friendly podcast.
But let's just say it's A and a H. I saw this doctor, and as soon as I went in, he just kind of like, the other doctor, as soon as I went in, she'd be helping with my pram. This doctor just looked generally annoyed that I had a big pram to take into the office with me. Which is already not a good first impression. And he was like, what seems to be the matter? So I was telling him my story.
Yeah.
But I also felt like he just hadn't read my notes because he seemed like utterly perplexed by the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's a common thing, isn't it?
It is. And I know they have to ask you just in case notes have missed anything, which is fine. Yeah. And then anyway, so he kind of was like, right. So he was already kind of going, well, let's just prescribe the thing.
Yeah.
And I was going, yeah, we would like to prescribe it, but we do have to weigh her. And he basically went, I'm not going to weigh her. She was weighed a week ago. And I was like, well, you have to weigh her. That's why I'm here. Like, that's why I was called up.
Yeah. Not to tell you how to do your job, but you literally have to weigh her.
And this is why I've come in. Like, otherwise you could have prescribed it without seeing me.
Yeah.
So then he was like, oh, okay.
We know from the previous doctor that when they see them, it's part of the process they have to weigh. That's why he made up a weight to put on the system, because he has to put a weight in.
So it's the same guy who made up the previous weight. So I think he's just an all-round poor doctor.
Yeah.
And I get the point of being like, it can be inaccurate sometimes, you know, if you weigh them too close together. But I was like, the whole point we're here is because we've been told to come in to get a weight.
The whole point is we're trying to check that she's not losing weight.
Yeah.
And no one wants to weigh her. How on earth are we meant to know if she's putting on weight?
So anyway, he was running around trying to find some scales that I pointed out were behind him. And I think that annoyed him more because I'd been like, they're right behind you, the scales we need to use.
It's like, well, I'm going to have to go find some scales.
And I was like, they're
right behind you.
So he got those scales
I really
out.
wish I was there to see some of this because I know it was really frustrating for
really
you,
frustrating.
but like it's
Then
hilarious
he
as
got
well.
the scales out and he basically, I'm not kidding, he put her on for a second, took her off and was like, yeah, she's put on weight. And I was like, the scale hasn't even balanced. It's going between 3 numbers.
Oh dear.
So I didn't say anything. I was just like, great, that was thorough. And then I was like, oh, before we leave, could you look in her mouth? Because we don't know if it's teething related, what it could be. And he was like, no, I'm not looking in her mouth. But this is when it annoyed me because he just refused completely. And I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean no?
Yeah.
You're just not going to do that.
Like we have a concern and we're trying to cover all our
Well,
bases.
I was also trying to be like, we know my child's refusing to eat. Surely looking in the mouth is part of that process to work out if something's wrong.
Yeah.
But according to him, not what he was going to do.
And it was only about a day later or so, we were chatting with some of you guys out there, our podcast community in our Facebook group chat where we communicate. And a couple of you mentioned to us like, oh, do you think it could be a tongue tie thing? Could that be a cause of it? And we know she's checked as a baby when she's born. But and that frustrated us even more because we were like, oh, okay, like we've not considered this. But the fact the doctor had refused to look in her mouth.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, maybe he wouldn't be qualified to actually be able to diagnose that, and that's fine.
But even like he could have checked, did she have thrush on her tongue? Could that be putting her off? Like there's a lot of things that could be wrong with her. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. So I was basically annoyed that I felt like he was just like, and it's more that he looked disgusted by the idea. I was like, you're a doctor. You know, part of your job is to look in people's mouths.
Yeah.
So I was pretty annoyed. And then it only got worse because I went to the pharmacy and the pharmacy said, we can't get the formula you've been prescribed. We no longer have a supplier for it.
Yeah.
And
We should also mention that the how on earth do you say it? It's not omeprazole. How the reflux medication.
Omeprazole.
That's it. I'm never going to remember how to say it.
That wasn't in either.
We had struggled getting hold of that as well when it was prescribed. We've been prescribed like a crazy rare version as well because she's little. We've been given it in liquid form, which apparently is very
expensive,
unusual to prescribe because it costs the NHS a fortune. But that was hard to get hold of as well, which again is kind of annoying. Like you get prescribed these things and then you have to like
chase up to find
go around multiple pharmacies just trying to find someone that can actually give it to you.
Yeah.
And it's like our system's kind of broken, isn't it?
It is, and I don't blame the doctors because they don't know what the pharmacy has. I just feel like there's no connect between the two.
Yeah.
When they send you to that pharmacy to go, oh, maybe there's a way we could check beforehand.
Yeah.
Especially because the pharmacy was basically like, we've not had that formula in for months.
Yeah.
Like, we can't get hold of
The
it.
pharmacy also refused or claimed that they couldn't order it in.
They said they couldn't order it in because they don't have the supplier.
So just
Which was crazy to me because I'd been able to order it online a week ago.
yeah.
So I wanted to be like, but I have a supplier. Like, anyway, found out I could put my prescription online and get it ordered.
Yeah, I'd never heard of this before. Maybe I'm just very naive. Like these online pharmacy things where you can actually just get it delivered with your prescription. So
you just put in her name and like date of birth. You don't even need your NHS number. They'll find you on the system and do it. So it's very, very useful.
Why have we never done this before? It seems like a much better.
Much easier. I'm sure loads of people who've got health things know. I think who just normally don't have that many problems.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's
So that was that. We should say you did actually put in a formal complaint about the doctor because it was such a bad experience. I mean, you came home crying from the doctors.
I think it was the act that he just blatantly refused. Like, instead of going, oh, I don't think that'd be a good idea, he was just like, no.
And we were like, we were really struggling day by day. We had good days and bad days. And like sometimes things were going well with her feeding. And you'd think like a visit to the doctor, normally that's like a reassuring thing.
Or even like,
this one
I
was
just felt he was so incompetent. Like, he didn't even know she was meant to be weighed. I was like, I haven't chosen to have this appointment.
And like just the knowledge, because you were asking questions about like how much should she be drinking, when, at what point
should we worry? And he just didn't answer.
Take her to the hospital because she's not drunk enough. Like, these are kind of key things we kind of need to know. When should we intervene?
And once again, was not told anything about my diet. Luckily, I've had enough sense at this point because they knew. They kept saying, I kept telling them, and we're also giving breast milk.
Yeah.
Which is 50% of what she drinks. At this point, they still once again did not tell me, do not eat or drink any milk. But I, luckily, had already started doing this because, I've looked into what you have to do. Yeah.
And we have support from elsewhere. So, like, I really feel for people that don't have, the support systems and other people to draw on because, our medical systems are so poor at giving advice. Like, we should shout out to your nephew, Joe, who've been through some of this journey with their little one, and so were able to give us some advice about what they'd done, and so that was kind of really useful. Actually, I know Joe listens along, so thanks a lot. And especially things like to exclude soya from your diet as well as milk was really useful because no one told us that.
No one told us that. Well, no one even told us not to have milk.
You really couldn't make some of it up, could you?
I don't know if I look too knowledgeable. Maybe they assume I don't need to know basic information, but I felt like that was a huge oversight. That nobody thought to go, oh, by the way, you won't be able to eat like any cow milk products or anything. Or soy, completely.
Anyway, I don't think I finished. I was going to say, like, when you asked the doctor those questions about stuff, he just kind of was like, oh, it's not a problem. Like, he should be drinking that much, but he couldn't give you a...
No, he just kept telling me she should be drinking 900 millilitres a day.
At least.
And I was like, well, we can't get to that. And then I was like, well, what point should we be worried? And he didn't even answer that question.
Yeah.
And I was like, so you're not going to answer me about when I should be worried about her feeding?
And I was frustrated because the implication was just like, oh, it's fine, like, it's perfectly normal.
No, he told me, he was like, oh, it's just a natural stage they go through. And I wanted to be like, for a month?
Yeah, like, maybe with teething, like, you have a few days when they don't drink as much and then they kick back up. I know it can, it can be variable. Babies don't drink the same amount every day, but it'd been a long time.
And I got more annoyed because I felt like if I'd been a man and gone in, he would have taken it much more seriously.
I felt so bad afterwards. I said, I really should have come in with you.
But you shouldn't have to. That's the thing. That's what was really annoying.
I know. But isn't that so frustrating that you felt like he was treating you differently because you're a woman? Like, it's just, in today's day and age.
I know. But that's why I think the woman doctor was a lot better.
I'm sorry, it's a bit of a moany episode, isn't it? But you kind of going through the journey that we've been through, get you up to speed.
So anyway, I've written a letter of complaint about him that they're meant to get back to me in 2 weeks about. So we'll see.
Be interesting to see what happens with that.
They did ask, like, as part of the thing, do you want to see that person again and discuss it? And I was like, no, I don't want to ever talk to that person again in my life. Thank you.
Oh dear. So what happened then? We're getting closer to the present, aren't we?
Well, that day I'd lost my temper. I was like, they're not doing anything. They're treating us like we're idiots. Let's try and get a private doctor.
Yeah, so this was actually, where are we now? This was a week ago.
Yeah.
I can't believe that's a week ago. Goodness me, it feels like a month ago. Oh, dear.
So I called up, well, I literally looked online. There was nowhere in our local vicinity that did paediatrician, so nowhere would take babies. So we ended up finding a private hospital at Leeds, Spire Hospital, shout out.
It was very good experience.
Good experience. So, which is depressing because you shouldn't have to pay kind of to feel heard and to feel like they've actually taken everything on board. We're very fortunate that
we can afford to go private. But like when you're not getting the medical care you need in the NHS, you got no other choice. Yeah. And for our peace of mind, we would pay any money.
Yeah, I literally said I'd pay everything just to know she was okay and that she was going to start eating better again. Like, Also what annoyed me is the doctor kept telling me, oh, we'll prescribe it for 2 weeks. And then after that, we're just going to reintroduce cow's milk after 2 weeks.
And it's frustrating because a lot of what they told us isn't wrong in the sense that, like, I can see how a doctor who doesn't quite understand or doesn't know how to communicate has come to tell us the things they came to tell us. Yeah. But once we spoke to the specialist, it was so much more nuanced that I understood the journey so much better.
Especially like...
So we're treating two different things, aren't we? We've got the reflux and we've got the cow milk allergy, and we're trying to work out, diagnose which is which. And so at some point, we will have to reintroduce some cow's milk to ascertain if she then... responds to that, we'll know which is the issue. And I can see that makes a load of sense. But the way the paediatrician talked to us about it, it was like, well, within the first couple of days, you introduce a small amount gradually and you'll immediately see.
But also, he was saying that you need to be on this formula for 2 months at least
Yeah.
to like properly see if that's...
And let it settle
Yeah.
and just...
Because with 2 weeks, it could be that the milk wasn't out of my system yet.
Yeah.
It could be that like the whole formula just hasn't taken to it yet.
I mean, that
like,
was
if
never
we were...
explained to us, was
No.
it, by the doctors? The fact that the things we'd been prescribed, the medication and the formula, that they take a week, 2 weeks more to actually have a impact or for us to notice.
Which I don't think they knew.
No, like the way we were kind of told it was more like, well, once they're on it, that will make things better.
Yeah.
And
so anyway, then we went and saw the private.
So yeah, we booked a private appointment for a
yeah.
paediatrician.
So the man, he basically, once he weighed her without being asked, which, you know, miraculous. Two, he went through what she was on prescription-wise, and it's way too low a dose for her size.
So the medication for the reflux, the thing I call omeprazole, but
omeprazole.
That's it. I really struggled at the hospital the other day when they were asking me what she was on. I was like, it's this thing. I don't know how to pronounce it. Anyway, so the dose they prescribed was way off. He said it's what he would give a 2-week-old baby, not a big 3-month-old baby.
Yeah.
So even like that, of course, we weren't noticing any difference with that because it's the wrong dosage.
And he was kind of amazed that she hadn't been weighed till we've kind of pushed for her to be weighed.
Yeah, and it was hilarious because you've written in the red book some weights that we tried to do at home ourselves, and he was like, "What are these weights?" And we were like, "Well, no one was weighing her, so we tried to do it ourselves." And he found it hilarious that we'd gone rogue and like basically been doing stuff ourselves to like
to try and combat the problem.
Yeah.
But no, he was really nice. So he informed us the medication was wrong. He informed us that it'd be ridiculous to put her on formula for 2 weeks and take her off because it'd take way longer than that for, you know, A, for it to show that it worked, but B, for her to get used to it.
Yeah.
So that was useful to know that, like, basically that what the GP wanted to do with us wouldn't have worked.
Yeah. He reassured us by checking in her mouth that she'd not got tongue tie or anything like that, that there's no other underlying cause, which is very reassuring because we wanted someone to have a look at her, you know, look her over and just...
We just wanted a professional, which sounds terrible. You want a professional to look over and go, no, there's no other reason that she's, you know, like this.
And also his medical opinion, his expert opinion, that for him, he didn't think teething was really playing a big role in it. It might be in a short-term capacity, but the length of time that she'd been off her milk is clearly not to do with teething.
And he's very good, like you could tell from the noises she made and stuff that it sounded like a reflux thing.
This was another area where I suddenly felt very naive because we'd kind of assumed, because the sickness has abated, because she's not throwing up after every feed, we'd completely switched tacks and were like, oh, well, it can't be reflux anymore. It must be the cow milk allergy. So we'd been focusing all our efforts on cow milk allergy. And like, I think after speaking to him, we realised, there's a lot of like signs of reflux.
Yeah, like even the noises she makes and stuff. Yeah. Like what a reflux
and those things could still be the main cause. Yeah. She might not have cow milk allergy at all. It might be purely a really bad reflux. And
he pointed out that she's quite developed for her age, so it's harder, like, so she can kind of remember unpleasant experiences more, so she knows it hurts when she drinks, like, and because she's more developed than a lot of 3-month-olds, she can kind of bat away stuff that other children won't be able to.
If she doesn't want to drink, she has the awareness to be able to... You can't trick her. You can't, you know... She won't lie passively and let you feed her without her realising, like, you know...
But he was very good.
I mean, this is it, isn't it? Like, really, what was so great about it, and we paid so much money, was for someone just to sit and, like, take us seriously, listen to us, and actually, like, respect our opinion as well. There's a lot of times, you know, he looked at us to know what was her normal behaviour.
Yeah, what was normal, And he was saying, like, well, she needs to be weighed in 2 weeks' time to check it's working.
Yeah.
Which I think he's trying to make the local GP do, but we'll see if that works.
I really wish I could be a fly on the wall. So he sent like some sort of letter to our GP to confirm like he's amended our prescription to the correct dose and like these other things that he's recommending. And it's like, that must be a bit awkward for a GP to be like...
Yeah, well, I've got a version of the letter that I got yesterday.
Oh, really?
In my,
exciting.
Thing, but it's funny because he's also saying like they need to prescribe me, I think it's calcium and iron because I'm no longer drinking
because you're
milk.
like no longer consuming.
Yeah. So he was like, she needs to be prescribed that, which
Of
I was
course,
like,
I didn't even think of that. Yeah.
No. And then he's been putting like, he's basically got an action plan of this is what needs to happen when. So for the next 2 months, she needs to be weighed at least once every 3 weeks
Yeah.
to make sure she's putting on weight.
Of course.
You know, duh. But, you know, for some reason, a specialist has to tell them that. And then he was saying at this point, like, then they need to reintroduce it. And how the plan to reintroduce it is that we keep giving her the breast milk. We just change out the formula for the one that's like got dairy in. Well,
and he was the first doctor to tell us that like you should be not having soya as well as milk in your diet. So yeah, the way he kind of explained it is like there's no, you know, quick fix. There's no solution particularly, but there are some tweaks to what we're currently doing that should help, you know, us work out what's going on. And he was able to, based on her weight, give us a kind of a more firm idea that like she needs to be drinking about 500, and if she's dropping below that
then it's
more
a
than,
worry.
you know, a couple of days consecutively, then but the problem for us is that there's no, if she does, there's nothing that can be done. You know, we take her into hospital and the solution is they'll tube feed her.
Yeah, true.
Like there is no other backup.
No.
So it's kind of stressful every day to be like, are we going to make that threshold?
Yeah. I was pleased last night because she drank well overnight.
She drank well. Yeah.
But this is the problem because I'm like the primary feeder now.
Well, yeah, she's gone off me entirely for a long time. We split everything equally. I could do half the night. It was fine. For a little while, she drank better with me even because I would walk around and do that. But in the last week, probably, I don't even think it's more than that. Probably just a week.
No, probably
She's
just a week.
Completely gone off me being able to feed her at all.
Yeah. So it's just mummy.
Occasionally, I get a feed in. I really have to put a lot of effort in.
You've got to work hard.
Make a lot of funny noises. I have to walk around. It's killing my back.
Yeah.
Because it takes normally about an hour to get her to drink a bottle.
Yeah.
And like, you know, just work-life balance is really hard.
Yeah.
Just everything else trying to manage is really difficult. But it feels like we're making progress.
We say this. On the weekend, we were in A&E.
Yeah.
Because...
So then we move on to our most recent medical drama.
Yeah. Basically, I gave her omeprazole.
Yeah.
Omeprazole?
Omeprazole.
Yeah, I'm saying it your way now.
It was the first time we'd given her the higher dose.
And she threw up like blood immediately afterwards. So basically, she choked on it.
Yeah.
And threw up blood.
I mean, she never takes medicine well at the best of times. She always kind of gags it down in a horrible way.
But I was like, oh my God, I've killed her. Like, she's going to die. She's spitting up blood.
Yeah.
So we took you to A&E.
Very worrying, isn't it, when they blow up? And I was just like, oh no.
Yeah, Elliot's like, I don't want to go to A&E again. I was like,
what's this? The like sixth time back at hospital. It's a weekend again.
Weekend again.
So like you.
And it was annoying because we did a nice morning.
We had it been. She drank really well. She drank with me.
She drank with you.
She had a whole bottle.
Been a really positive day so far. And then that happened, and I was like, oh God, we're gonna have to go back to A&E.
Yeah.
And we were there for hours this time.
Yeah.
Normally they like prioritize babies. This time they didn't. There was a kid thrown up in the kids' room, so I was like, well, I'm not gonna sit in the kids' room with her.
If you've not been to A&E before, then you get seen by like a person who will assess you initially, won't they? Before you then have to wait again to see whatever the follow-up is. In this case, it's waiting for a doctor, which, as you can imagine, doctors are in short supply.
Yeah.
So you went into A&E about 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock
on Saturday.
And I got seen at 2 o'clock initially.
Right.
And they looked at her and they were like, okay, her vitals are fine. But yeah, if she's thrown up blood, that's really dangerous.
It is worrying, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, it's good that, you know, there's no other
symptoms.
Major obvious problem. But
then they were a bit worried because they did her like blood sugar and she didn't wake up. And it's obviously a sharp prick, so she should have woken up. But she was just very sleepy. So
yeah, I mean I think I think it was just the atmosphere that kind of,
Yeah, lulled her into a
or whether
sleepy
it was
sense.
just a shock with this throwing up. But like she
Yeah.
slept all afternoon, which
She did. It
when
was
you're worried about
unusual.
her,
Yeah, you're
because
worried about her
she's thrown
being
up blood,
unconscious or something. And
you
it's
were in
worrying.
a real state really
was.
because she'd thrown up blood and then was just unconscious the rest of the afternoon is kind of a bit worrying.
And you guys a nice time at home.
We had a lovely little time
Making soup.
me and Lily. I mean, this is the problem when you've got an older one, isn't it?
It is.
You've got to split things. Like, it's so difficult. But yeah, me and Lily had a nice time. I tried to put a lot of effort into giving her a lot of
She's
attention.
wanted to make soup for ages. So if people don't know, she's really into the clangers.
Yeah.
We don't really know why.
No. She
She's
calls
got-
them elephants.
She calls them elephants. I think they look like mice. But
When did the clangers are like really old, aren't they? When did they come
were
out?
before our time. I
Yeah.
think they must have been in the 80s.
I mean, the one she watches is like some sort of modern
yeah.
done thing, isn't it?
But I never saw them when I was growing
No,
up.
I don't think I saw the clangers.
But anyway, she's a big fan of the clangers.
Yeah.
And in the clangers, there's a dragon that makes soup called the soup dragon.
Yeah.
And I think there's a baby soup dragon too.
Right.
So for ages, she's wanted to make soup.
Yeah.
So long story short, they made soup.
We made some soup along with various other things we did that afternoon.
And then she was so excited because you guys ended up coming because I was like, guys, I need more formula. Like,
Yeah, we had to come
and I need a breast pump.
Yeah. I mean, we were, again, naively, we hoped that we'd be coming to pick you up to come home.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen. Well, we
Goodness.
came in to join you at 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
So you'd been there from 1, so you'd been there 5 hours.
We finally saw a doctor.
Yeah,
who
she was
checked her
good, checked her
mouth.
over. But of course, she's not a paediatrician, she's just a doctor.
So she wanted to was like, oh, she looks fine in herself, which
She's
is what
happy.
the first person said.
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
got no reason there would be blood in her sick. So then she was like, okay, I'm just going to check with the paediatricians before we discharge you. Talked to the paediatrician was like, that's still a lot of blood for like, because it was about two teaspoons of blood. So it's not a lot, but it's a lot for a baby.
They wanted to do some checks and
Some
blood
checks
tests.
on it.
But yeah, you and Lily went home at that point
Yeah.
because it was like 7 o'clock. It's Lily's bedtime.
He needs to go to bed. I'm exhausted.
Yeah, you've been there a long time.
Yeah.
It's horrible waiting in hospitals.
It is.
It's like so stuffy. You
I
get a
think
headache.
the lights just make
The
you have
lights are
bad
horrible,
hairs.
aren't they? She was
You
very
know.
excited to show you her soup.
Very excited. She was very proud. Ran over, showed me the soup. I said how beautiful it was, and she was saying it's very delicious. And I was like, I'm sure it will be.
She did eat
tomorrow.
it very well, actually. It's surprising. You know, the typical like toddler thing, isn't it? You put all this effort in, they help
you
you make
never
it,
know, yeah.
and then they don't eat it at all. But no, she did eat it, which was good because it's full of vegetables.
No,
I mean, it must be the healthiest thing she's eaten in like months.
Oh yeah. Well, but I say this actually, she's been doing really well eating.
She's been doing better.
Even though Lola's been horrendous recently, Lily started eating apples and pears.
True,
She's doing really
true.
well,
True.
and she likes mushrooms at the minute. So
Yeah.
we're doing well with the old one.
Yeah.
Um,
Gold star to you, Lily. You're like, goodness me, can you imagine if she'd been in like a tantrumy phase as well at the moment? This would have been
Yeah.
a nightmare.
she's been really good.
Almost as soon as you left, we got moved up to the children's ward upstairs, Woodlands.
I can just say it's a beautiful looking ward. I was
Yeah,
really impressed with
we've
how
not been in it before.
family friendly it was. It
Very
was like
nice.
little woodland creatures all over the walls.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was very impressed. Elliot messaged me, being like, "Oh, we're in our own private room.
We're just waiting
We're
now.
just waiting, but Lola won't drink."
Well, yeah, she was due another feed because that's why we'd come in to bring you
Yeah.
more milk. So I had a bottle of milk with me.
And I'd been sat. This is glamorous. I've been sat pumping milk in A&E, so I had some milk to give her.
Poor thing. She's not been drinking with me, but she's gonna have to. So I started early, it was a bit before, but I
Yeah.
kept trying every 10, 15 minutes. The big problem was she was screaming with me because she was hungry.
Yeah.
But then she'd scream and wouldn't have her bottle either.
Yeah.
And I was like, ugh. And I spent like a couple of hours doing this, and I was like, this is really
He was
like
like,
struggling.
yeah.
I was like, we could be here all night, and she might not drink at all. Like, what?
No.
What are we gonna do? So I was messaging you like, I'm so sorry. I know I've like
Yeah.
come in to try and relieve you, but
But you're gonna have to come in.
like I think we're gonna have to find a way to get you in because otherwise Lola's just not gonna drink.
Yeah.
By this time it was about 9 o'clock, so I'd
Yeah.
been there. What's it? Another 3 hours,
hours,
and
yeah.
like I'd just been sat in this one room waiting for a pediatrician. So
Yeah.
like at that point I was like, I don't know whether they're going to arrive in 10 minutes or if it's going to be like another 3 hours, if we're
Yeah.
going
It's
to
gonna
be
be
here
midnight.
all night.
Yeah.
But like we've got this logistical problem now because Lily's asleep.
Can't leave her.
How do we swap?
So firstly, I looked.
I mean, we should say we live very close to the hospital, so
We do, yeah. It's easy to get
we can
to.
walk to and from it, which is such a blessing, particularly at the moment.
Yeah. I checked because the neighbours we know well, and they didn't look like they were in. Their car was gone, so I was like, oh, great, because I thought, I'll just knock on their door and say, could you sit with her while we swap over?
Yeah.
So in the end, I messaged good old Vicky. She's been on an episode before.
Yeah, shout out to Vicky and Mark.
Vicky and Mark, heroes
Lifesavers.
Again. Please let him come round.
Just send anyone. Like, we're happy if a complete stranger sat at our house.
Well, I don't think we'd become a complete stranger. But no.
You know what I mean.
Mark was very nice and he came round. And it was, of course, typical. As soon as I got to the hospital...
Yeah, doctor arrived. Yeah.
Elliot was laughing there. He was amazed I found the room.
If people don't know, Emma, I'd say she's terrible with directions, as with most of your family.
Yeah.
I don't think people quite understand what that means. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I gave her, I as she was coming, I thought, goodness me, I can't leave here. So
No.
I'm going to have to try and explain to Emma how to get here. You would think maybe you could follow the signs on the things, but I knew that wasn't going to happen.
I was going, in my defence, hospitals are very confusing.
So
I already made myself laugh because I was on the phone to my sister Kirsty. And I automatically walked into the maternity entrance because, you know, that's the place I've always been before in the hospital.
Just like, muscle memory.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, goodness, I hope it's near maternity. And it turns out it was from his
Well,
message.
not really, but I'd sent you step-by-step instructions
Yeah.
and I'd done it by saying go to maternity first.
Yes.
And then get the lift.
So I was like, great, I'm at maternity already. And I remember on the phone going to Kirsty, I'm going to turn you off now because I really have to concentrate.
What happened? I'd sent in my message, go up in the lift to the first floor, go out and turn right.
Yeah, so I went to the first floor and turned left for some reason. I don't know if I was in a panic or what. Turned left, I walked all the way down there till I came across some more stairs.
Yeah,
I was like, well, it can't.
The problem was
I'd
said turn right, and then I'd said go right to the end of the corridor, and it's there.
Yeah.
And so you turned the wrong way, but then you'd followed my next instruction was to keep going.
And I found some stairs, and I was like, that can't be right. That, you know, I can't possibly be going down or upstairs. So I turned back round, went back to the lift. And I thought, you must have done the wrong floor. Must be the third floor. So I clicked on the button, got to the third floor, started walking down, and then I could hear, like, you know, when people are in surgery, like saws and tools, and I was like, that doesn't sound right. I don't think it'd be near surgery. So I thought, I'll go back to the lift. And then when I stood in the lift, I saw the label for the ward on this. I was like, oh, I just walked the wrong way.
I'd even explain, like, it's literally right next door to where you gave birth.
Yeah, I know. That confused me more for some reason. So then I got out of the lift and I was like, right, I walk that way.
Yeah.
And then I got there.
I must say, when you walked in through the door and the doctor was with me, I looked so surprised because I was like, you actually found me.
I think you even said, you were like, you got here. And I think the doctor would be like, oh, maybe she had a long way to walk. No, he means I physically found the room they were in.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, you gave me a phone call, didn't you? And my phone was ringing as you know, the doctor was asking me loads of questions. I had to turn you off, but I was thinking at the time, I was like, I bet that's Emma ringing to say she's lost in the hospital.
Yeah, it was. I was like, I don't know.
Literally was.
I was like, I don't know what's happened. I've somehow got lost.
Anyway, long story short, it was all fine. They couldn't find a reason particularly.
I think they just think it was the omeprazole that just particularly irritated her.
Yeah, I mean, the best reasoning was the doctor said because she's had a lot of reflux and like through most of January she's been violently throwing up, that could make her insides quite sensitive and could mean that that's kind of why the sudden medicine had kind of caused it, but who knows. We then spent the next day waiting around all day for them to ring us to give us the blood test results, which again, mildly stressful and not a great system.
No, I was a bit happier that day though. I know it sounds silly, but she looked quite well in herself and was drinking not badly.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the last 2 days where she's drank not too badly.
Oh, it brings us to today, doesn't it?
Yeah.
There we go. That's like a recap of the last month for you. I mean, I don't know how exciting it all is, but that's
I don't know,
the story.
it's just depressing for people, really. It's not particularly fun.
I know, yeah. I think in a weird way, it's just helpful for us to get it out there. It's helpful for us to talk through it and share it. And if other people are going through this sort of thing, like, I hope you can resonate. And if you're not, I know people feel quite sorry for us. We're having a hard time, and we are. I mean, I'm just grateful a lot of the time that it's not worse in a way. Like,
Yeah.
you know, the stuff yesterday with the throwing up blood, you realise, like, as much as we're struggling with feeding, there's so many other
things.
So many other medical things that could be happening where it could be so much worse.
Yeah.
She's well and healthy, and
even if she has to be force fed.
even if she doesn't want to drink.
It was like after yesterday, I kept saying to Elliot, well, as long as she doesn't throw up blood again, I'm happy to struggle on with her.
Yeah.
Just...
Yeah. So it is a challenge, and
Yeah.
it's difficult, and we have good days and bad days, but hopefully it's just a phase. We're kind of right in the thick of that really challenging thing. I mean, we were exactly right again, weren't we? We had a really good first 2 months, and just like with Lily, we kind of said the next few months were then, for us, what we found the hardest.
It does annoy me though, because I'm like, this is still definitely harder than a toddler.
Yeah.
Like, and I know we didn't have as many troubles with Lily last time around, but I still, even though they have tantrums, like...
Yeah. And you feel so guilty all the time that we're, like, often neglecting Lily in order to care for the baby.
Yeah. So poor Lily, she's been really brave.
We put in a lot of effort, don't we, to try and do
basically, the other person who's with Lily then has to put in 110% to try and be as entertaining and loving as possible.
If anything, it's my work that's taken the biggest hit.
Oh, yeah.
Which is just like... I mean, I have such a wonderful work that are so understanding, but that's why we've not really been able to return to the podcast until now, because it's just been too challenging. But yeah, we're muddling through, and hopefully
the next podcast episode will be like, oh, she's starting to drink a bit better.
Yeah, because it got to this point, I thought there's too much here to be able to talk about in a parenting achievement. We'll have to do a whole episode getting people up to speed, and then going forward, we're focused on some topics again about at different points in parenting, different things. We've got some ideas planned of fun, you know,
they hopefully won't all be like this. Where we
yeah. We'll keep you updated on what's going on with life in this way. But as always, the podcast is about the realities of parenting. Yeah, and this is the reality, isn't it?
It is, You can have one child that never had any allergies, and you can have another child that's got a horrendous allergy. Oh, and shout out, if anyone has any nice recipes for me to eat. Remember, guys, needs to be gluten-free. Gluten-free. And no cow milk.
No cow's milk, no soya. Yeah.
Just, it's a bit of a struggle.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you for tuning in and joining us this week. Thank you for joining us under the covers well, it'd be a bit weird to be under the covers in the bed with us. I was going to say that's
getting a bit weird.
It's a little weird, but you get the idea. Thanks for...
Oh, be under your cover.
Yeah, we'll be under separate covers in our separate beds. This has been Don't Wake the Baby. God bless, sleep well.
Don't wake the baby.
Ta-ta for now.
And the baby's actually asleep, so it's actually right for once.
Yes, don't wake the baby. Shh.